Hi, my name is Doug Vo from the Dial Foundation, and it's actually June 18th, not the 17th. This video I'm putting together to answer people's questions from my two previous videos on Hapgood and Chan Thomas's Adam and Eve story. Unlike others, people who ask me questions, I don't get mad at them. I don't call them names. What it does tell me is how much disinformation people actually believe because of what the government and institutions have told them. And the purpose of this is basically to put an end to this crustal displacement theory. It should have died a long time ago. It should have never been promoted after Hapgood got done with it. But the CIA decided they were going to create a disinformation program to fool everybody, to lead them away from the real problem, which is the fact that our sun Nova is on a clock cycle. Anyway, I'm also going to cover the problems that the CIA had with this theory, as it showed up in Hapgood's and Thomas's book. Alternate attempts by the CIA at the disinformation. The plants and animals do not lie. And end of crustal displacement theory. The reason I mention the plants and animals, you'll see in a second, one of my fans wrote me a very nice email, and he figured it out himself regarding the animals, which I hadn't focused on the animals, but you'll see it. And I give him credit. Again, it's all about theory. Unless you have the correct philosophy, you will never figure this stuff out. There's just no way you can. Okay. I'm doing this video because of this person. His name is Scott. What are your thoughts on the Earth tilting on its axis so that the new poles are where they are projected to be in the Indian Ocean versus the rotational reversal on its current axis? What he's saying, and the confusion of crustal displacement, here's our pole, that hole. Somehow it tilts this way, so the poles are now at the equator, and off the coast of Peru and in the middle of the Pacific someplace is going to be the North and South poles. That's what he's talking about. And that's the nonsense that was being presented in the Adam and Eve story. Even, you'll see in a second, even Hapgood knew something was wrong with it. But this is the part that got to me. I could come up with supportive data for both these possibilities. I'm not interested in a battle of hypotheses here. I know somebody supports the tilt theory. I'm simply trying to figure out most probable hypothesis so I can plan survival of my family. That's really what it's all about. People want to know, once you plow through all the bullshit, what's the truth and what's going to happen so they can plan their lives. After all, I'm saying this thing, the reversal is going to happen in 23 years. That's when the next Gleisberg cycle is. Anyway, that's the reason I'm doing this. So I'm very happy to do this video for that reason. Here's the problem. This was originally designed as disinformation. It's not the truth from cover to cover. My book, Reality Revealed, came out, copyright in 77, was printed by 78. And I sent a copy and a letter to Luis Alvarez, who wrote papers for the Jason group, which I explained in the previous videos. And basically, that's the reason why this came out. It was 30 years after 1963, you'll notice a 30-year spread. That must have been the declassification that was before Obama's executive order that changed it to 25 years and 50 years. And this, of course, is exactly 50 years after 1963, which is when this thing first came out. So it was all an attempt to fool and lead people away from the real problem, which is the sun. This is, like I mentioned with the globe, this is where they think the North Pole is going to be and the South Pole is going to be here, which is beyond stupid. Let me explain also. Even Hapgood said, well, and Chan Thomas, that he's admitting the Earth rotates this way. When it stops, he's admitting it, that the oceans are going to go in an easterly direction and cover the continents. But you can't have this action, 90 degrees, all from the rotation. How do you explain that? You got two vectors. It just can't be. The oceans are not going to go west to east then, which he's admitting that's what they would be doing. So he contradicts himself all the time. He graduated as an electrical engineer. He should have kept with in electrical engineering. This is the problem all theories have. If you can't explain these 8 items, then you have nothing. There's no way you can possibly figure this thing out. You're going to be wrong. The first is drop in worldwide ocean levels. 450 feet is what I know from carbon-14 dating. The rapid fields from 1,000 to 5,000 feet thick in less than 30 years. That's how fast we know these ice fields were deposited, which this should really be number one. Massive earthquakes resulting in mountain building and subsidence. The glass beads found on the Earth, Moon, and Mars with fission tracks and as much as 5 isotopes that can only be created in relativistic temperatures. Those are temperatures well over a million degrees, like an atomic bomb. We've tested this stuff on Earth and Moon, not Mars, but we see the glass beads there. They're called blueberries, Mars blueberries. Deep sea canyons found all over the world. You have to be able to explain that. The mass extinction of both plants and animals found all over the world at the time of the geomagnetic reversal. He tries, Chen Thomas tries to explain that. The creation of both new plants and animals found all over the world based on a previous related species immediately after the geomagnetic reversal. This is the one that stumps them all. They don't know how to do it. I was the first to connect it with the sun noving. The 3 things that can create a new species is, obviously you have to get down to the DNA and change the DNA. Well, the sun gives off cosmic rays, gamma rays, and ultraviolet light. All 3 have been known to alter the DNA of plants and animals. Increase in volcanic activity immediately before, during, and after the geomagnetic reversal. Why has the Earth's rotation, why has the Earth gotten colder over the past 500 million years? And I explained this before, but I'll go through it again. Okay, in the 2013 version of this, he tries to explain evolution in his page 23 and 24. High latitude structure, blah, 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 deadly cosmic rays, but never says where the cosmic rays are coming from. Obviously, it's coming from the sun. Then he goes into how it affects humans. Basically, guys' gonads are going to be bombarded by cosmic rays, and it alters your genes, and the same thing goes with women and her eggs. He lifted that right from my God Said Judgment book, 2007, chapter 8, page 297. No one before me had ever connected that the sun is the cause or the source of the cosmic and gamma rays that alters the DNA. Nobody. He lifted it right from me. Remember, the 2013 book is like 5 years after my book came out. So we had it. This is the important one. I've shown this in a number of my earlier videos. How I found the clock cycle. I found 6 blank periods of space in the database, and 4 of the 6 were 12,068 light years apart. That's the whole point, that you've got to realize what's really going on. That all I needed was this to prove the universe is the product of information. I don't need anything else, but I had so much more. This is the other part I found, which is equally important. The Gleisberg cycles and the solar cycles. Sunspot cycle is 11.09 years, 136 Gleisberg cycles, which is made up of 8 solar cycles, equals 12,068 years. It matched up. I won't go into this video, but I went in I think it was video series 6 on Moses 10 code systems, that I found the same number embedded in the Torah in code. Earth Shifting Crust by Hapgood and James Campbell. Campbell's the one who really stuck with the idea of crustal displacement. But what I'm showing here briefly, I showed it in the previous video. Unfortunately, basically, it was all based on the weight of the ice cap would be great enough and be expanding eventually. The centripetal force would set the Earth spinning wildly and eventually go to a new axis. But unfortunately for the theory, it appears that the stabilizing effect of the bulge, this is the bulge on the equator, is either 24 or 27 miles, was thousands of times greater than anything of the mass that any ice could form. Also, we wind up saying, this is Hapgood. He's admitting he's got problems with the theory. And he winds up saying, no question, that this result, had it come earlier, would have brought the investigation to an end. Something about the ice caps, if it's over water, it wouldn't grow very much. And the whole process of crustal displacement could be brought to an end. But he continued only because of Campbell, and they had so much work already done, and they had things that, geologically speaking, could kind of explain it. But he forgot about the dating of what they found, and I'm going to go into it in a few moments. Confident with the basic principles of physics in the field of meteorology. His science, the science with Tyndall, he was saying the same thing I did. Basically, if you have an ice field, 4,000 feet thick in Seattle or 5,000 feet thick in New York City, you have to have snow. You have to have a means by which to deposit it. How do you get snow? You got to have clouds. How do you get clouds? You got to have evaporation of ocean water up in the sky, and then it comes down in the form of snow, and eventually there's a ratio of about 4.68 to 1. 4.68 feet of snow gives you 1 foot of glacial ice. So you realize in Seattle we had 19,400 feet of snow. This is not a normal snowfall. And you get buried in that, and you're not coming out. Tyndall also mentioned the amount of heat necessary to make an ice field like North Pole or South Pole. He gives the analogy of a stream of molten iron has to be 5 times heavier than the glacier itself. So now, I actually did a calculation. We know that the ocean water was at least 400 feet below its current level now, immediately after the reversal and the nova. So this is all the oceans worldwide. And what we found, or what I found, was I tried to calculate how much heat in calories it takes to evaporate 1 square foot of ocean water, salt water, 450 feet of it. It came out to over 5 billion calories of heat applied to every square foot of ocean worldwide. Now, in reality, I'll show you in reality what really happened. But you can see it's the only thing that produces that kind of heat is the sun. Now, in his first 2 versions, this is the 63 version, and there's the 93 version. This one, like I mentioned in video VI, he was the one, Chen Thomas himself was the one who called me up in '79 and said, how did I figure it all out? So between 63 and 93, this was the 63, and in my book I said 12,000 year cycles. So this is 35,000 years. The Wisconsin one, he has it. But when he redid it, he put a question mark. Isn't that interesting? He didn't want to go any place close to anything but multiples of 12,000 years. A little disingenuous, trying to hide something. However, at the time of the cataclysm, this is just the first 2 versions, he inserts another way of trying to explain a cycle, because he knew there was a cycle involved. So this is in the second version, the 1993 version. A magnetic null zone he winds up resurrecting. And that's how he winds up trying to do this. Something is occurring cyclically through time, and comes up with this nonsense of MHD energy and stuff like that. Well, I go into the previous video. The problem for him, and for all of them, is the Milky Way, our galaxy, our solar system, goes through this imaginary plane, a midpoint of the Milky Way. The last time was 3 million years ago. The next time they estimate is going to be 30 million years from now. That's not the cycle we're looking for. We know polar reversals, magnetic reversals happen a lot sooner than that, namely 12,068 years. This is the face of the enemy. Now, this is the 2013 version. It wasn't copyrighted then, unless he's talking about the 30-year mark. This was written after, and it was after he had my God's Judgement book, copyright 2007. Page 10 of the Aftermath one. Again, he resurrects this null zone idea, magnetic null zone. Of course, as I showed you, the null zone is basically every 30 or 33,000 years, 33 million years. And he's saying maybe every 10 to 11,000 years. It's just beyond stupid. This is why he's doing it. Now, we'll know our disinformation program is complete when everything the American public believes is false. Now, this is the first cabinet meeting of Reagan. Before Reagan was Carter. Carter wound up creating the Department of Education, which you really should call it the Department of No Education or False Education, where they stop teaching you script and stop teaching you civics, which is basically how our government runs. They rather think about communism is wonderful, you know? The bureaucracy gets so much more power and can steal so much more. So this is a quote from William Casey, and it's a correct quote. And you all have to realize the way they did it was in the education system and also in the National Science Foundation, which gives out the grants to scientists who want to do a paper on something. So if you want to do a paper saying, hey, I think our sun novas, you're not getting the grants. But the whole thing is set up as a scam. The professors can only get 1 month's salary out of the grant, but the bureaucracy, the administration of the school, can take as much as they want. Take half. You need it for a new car. It tells you immediately it's set up as a payoff to academia to shut up and toe the line. Now, once they took over the Department of Education, you know, they had it made. Now, Chen Thomas was kind enough in his third version to tell us he was Majestic. Majestic was the security clearance that dealt with UFOs, and evidently they stuck also the knowledge of that our sun novas in Majestic, which is the highest you can get. Now, the reason I mention it, one of my fans mentioned that somebody on the internet and on their YouTube were trying to answer me, and they said, well, Bill Gates, the elites, built this seed bank, and this is located within north of the Arctic Circle by Norway. So I did some investigation, and lo and behold, this is the map of the thing, and it's managed by the Crop Trust. The main contributors are Australia, Canada, Germany, Ireland, Norway, Sweden, Switzerland, United Kingdom, the United States. That was the Department of Agriculture. In fact, all of them are the departments of agriculture or the government itself. Bill and Melissa Gates Foundation, I don't know how much they gave and probably didn't care. They just threw their 2 cents in. Grains Research and Development Corporation, that's Australian government. A number of development countries have also provided, including Egypt, Ethiopia, and India. In other words, the statement that said the elites know and they put this thing up there, well, I'll tell you why they put it up there. If they put it any further south where it warmed up, their refrigeration bill would be huge. I don't even know if they have an electrical line going there to power anything. And I think they probably don't. That's why they put it north of the Arctic Circle. They didn't have to refrigerate it at all. See? And only one of these voles have the seeds in it. So what's in the other two? That's going to be funny. But that's the reason why. They put it where it was cold. They didn't have to pay for electricity or bring a line in. Now, I showed you the Majestic security clearance. That's the reason why all the elites did not know and were not told that our sun nova. They were told bullshit. They were lied to us like the rest of us. They may have been told that the threat, overblown threat of a Carrington event, and also maybe a solar flare. You don't know. But they couldn't. The only ones who knew this stuff was a few people in the CIA and the Department of Defense Intelligence Agency for sure. I call them the only adults in the room. Anyway, if the elites were told, also by training an accountant, they wouldn't be doing what they're doing. They wouldn't be buying assets. They would not be buying buildings or investing in them, like BlackRock and Blackstone. They wouldn't be. They would be selling their assets off, buying a piece of property within the zone that I said around the equator, and starting to dig and create a cave shelter of some sort. They wouldn't be doing what they're doing because it's a waste of money. Okay, this is where, this is the person, this is right from one of the comment sections on YouTube. So this is how he identifies himself. So anyway, hi all. So the equator is 42 kilometers or 27 miles for you Americans. For the axis to tilt 90 degrees due to the weight of the snow, that is a lot of weight. Doug mentions in another video series that they head closer to the equator when, or head towards the equator when that's when the shit hits the fan. Most of the crocodiles reside near the equator and have survived for millions of years. Lots of research to back it up. If the crocs have been surviving there, so maybe no tilt occurs. He's absolutely correct. And I really thanked him for it. So I went further. Here's the equator, and this is the environment of crocodiles, alligators, and caiman. You could see it's from, here's the Tropic of Cancer, Tropic of Capricorn is right there. And you can see they exist all in the equatorial region. We have them here in Florida. They're not house pets. Occasionally they walk across the golf courses, big guys. You let them go through and play the hole that they want. This is a Canadian turtle found in the Canadian Arctic. It is 90 million years ago. That's how old this thing is. That's a foot. I think that's another foot. That's the shell. Frog bones were also found in Eocene sediment. That's 56 to 34 million years ago, which contained dinosaur fossils. If it's dinosaur fossils, then it really should be Upper Cretaceous period, 66 to 84 million years ago. Many of these dates, I'll tell you right now, are really estimates. We don't really know. Some is based on the steady state theory of sediment once it gets laid down. Others are radioactive decay of certain elements. And that's also by theory. This is all reptiles. Turtles, snakes, everything else. Here's the equator. And you can see most of the dark blue is within the range. Nothing up here or down there. They can't live. Now, we had a frost here in Florida, December of last year. And some of my tropicals died. Everything above ground died. This is a banana tree. I have no idea what this plant is. My son bought it. And the same goes for this. But they started coming up from the roots. The banana tree is now about 3 feet high. It's recovered nicely. This one has 2. This one's doing okay. So that also told me the plants don't lie. Besides the animals, they don't lie. The plants definitely don't lie. So again, I looked for where do bananas grow? You know, here's the equator. Gee, how do you like that? It's within that range again. Gee, I I guess if the Earth tilted 90 degrees, we wouldn't have any bananas. How do you like that? Here is mangoes. I love mangoes, don't you? There's the equator. Again, within the range. No place else. Gee, again, if the Earth tilted, it was by the equator, we wouldn't have any mangoes, and same could go for papayas. I love papayas. Same thing, look. These are the main growing states. You can grow it anywhere within this range here, as long as you have enough water. But again, you see it for yourself. All these tropical plants survive because it never got that cold. The ground did not freeze. That's why I'm telling you, if you want to survive this thing, you have to build a cave shelter with a very good watertight door and in that range. Otherwise, forget it. What's going to happen is it'll start snowing, and you won't be able to get out. Again, the dates up here are intelligent guesswork. It's probably a half to a third of what it says there. So I'm going to go through. One important point is this. They couldn't figure out why you have some plants and animals they found evidence of those in the two polar areas, northern Canada, northern Europe, I assume Siberia, and definitely Antarctica. But what they didn't understand, because again, their theory and their steady state model, they always assumed the Earth was in the same location. It wasn't. This screams at you. It goes from hot to cold, what we have now. And that's what's going on here. At first, Devonian Paleozoic is ocean fish and shellfish and stuff like that. The reason is the land was too hot because the Earth was too close to the sun. See, every time that sun novas, that dust shell hits the Earth at 1,515 miles per second. I don't know how thick it is, depending on what part of the shell hits us, or how dense the shell is that gets to us. But the point is it pushes the Earth a little further away. I'm trying to calculate it based on what stage Venus is in its evolution. And it hasn't even formed oxygen or water. It's still basically, it's got a thin crust, and it's volcanoes going off, and it's hot, 400 or 500 degrees. So in other words, it's in the beginning where the Earth was, I don't know, they estimate 4 billion years ago. I don't think so. It could be 3 or 2.5 billion years. Nobody really knows. It's just guesswork. But at some point, every time the sun novas, we get pushed a little further away. Eventually, we'll be like where Mars is, which has no oceans or rivers, but it has lots of evidence they had it. So this is what's going on. Too hot, they have to stay in the ocean. Finally, when it starts cooling down, and only by the poles, where it's cool enough, they had amphibians coming on the land, and then finally, Permian, late Paleozoic, you have some land animals, reptiles. And as we get further away, eventually, at this point, something happens. It gets too cold, and most of the dinosaurs just kind of petered out. They couldn't live. Here's an example of how the Earth, there was a large continent called Gondwana, and you can see how South America, Africa, Antarctica, and Australia, and India fit together. And you saw, and I showed in the previous two videos that the expansion joints, which are basically the Mid-Atlantic Ridge and multiple ridges in the Indian Ocean and the Pacific, they started expanding the Earth. The Earth has been getting larger. And I showed that. So eventually Australia winds up way over here. India goes across the Indian Ocean, pushed up against the Asian continent. But they know this from the fossil records. They all connect. You see how they connected? So anyway, the plants don't lie. Fossil plants found in Canada, Sweden, and Norway. I could have done many more. There's so much evidence and so many fossils found. Just search for prehistoric fossils in Canada or name the country, and you're going to see it. Loads of them. Now, they found a forest in northern Norway, and the Carboniferous period, which is about 350 million years ago. That's when trees started forming. Here's an example. This one was found in Nova Scotia, not that far away from where they found this. So the reason why is, again, it's the North Pole area. It gets sunshine, but the angle of incidence of the sun hitting the land is such that it's not that bad. By the equator, who knows what the temperature was? Maybe 200 degrees, who knows? But here, you can see what they're getting at. Looks like the same tree that the artist grew here. Here is central Canada, Pliocene palm trees, 55 to 50 million years ago. Now, the reason I'm showing you is this. Those who talk about crustal displacement, they make it sound like, oh yeah, we found this, ferns and other plant life, and they don't mention the animal life. The plant life in northern Canada, the Arctic, and Antarctica. But they fail to mention, deliberately, maybe out of ignorance, that this stuff has happened tens to hundreds of millions of years ago. This is not like yesterday, you know. They're trying to imply, including Chen Thomas, oh yeah, this happened just 6,000 or 12,000 years ago. It's a lie. That's all they do is lie. Here's more Swedish fossils, 250 to 150 million years old. Here. They shouldn't be there, but they are. The only way that we can explain this is our Earth was closer to the sun and therefore received more radiant heat to heat the place up. So only the northern latitudes and very far southern latitudes were cool enough that you can have plants even grow. Antarctica. There was a lot here. Milwaukee found fossil fragments of 13 trees and discovered fossils of trees that are over 260 million years old. The meaning that is particular forest was growing at the end of a Permian period before the first dinosaurs. It means the only place that was cool enough that the plants could grow and not get cooked was down by the South Pole. Here's more of it. Antarctic Peninsula. These were found Carboniferous soil deposits. Now, he's estimated this is 100 million years can be found. But if it's in Carboniferous soil, that dates to 355 to 300 million years ago. In short, they don't know, they don't really have an accurate picture at all. It's, like I said, guesswork. Here's another one, same thing. This was 55 million years ago. Again, shortly about the same time, but the end of the Cretaceous, and with dinosaurs. And these are plants that existed in the South Pole, in Antarctica. The British put a series of stamps out. This is cool. And here's pictures of what they have near their base. They estimated 38 million years ago. Anyway, the pollen record in the sedimentary layers enabled the construction of a detailed picture of rapid decline in the forest during the late Eocene around 35 million years ago, and widespread glaciation in the middle of the Miocene around 13 million years ago. Again, this isn't like yesterday or a few thousand years ago like Chen Thomas and others try to imply. These plants are now stone. So you can get an idea. Do not believe they'll lie. They're trying to say, don't believe your lying eyes. This is the problem again, where the Earth was together, how it was. Antarctica, Australia, that goes up. North America, you see, this Pangea, very long time ago, 250 million years ago, they estimate. North America is northern Canada. Africa, they put up there, that's interesting. But eventually, you could see where it's, well, they put it by the equator, I don't know. Here again, another Pangea. South America, Gondwana land, North America, Europe and stuff like that, and Siberia. In other words, the Earth was forming. They did the best they can to try to figure out what's going on. This is what's actually happening during the nova. Water level goes up, sun's output increases just before the reversal. Many of the glaciers melt. We see them in the lower latitudes. A lot of the glaciers are moving, melting. But even Greenland, Iceland, and Antarctica, some are melting, but still not that warm. So this is what happened when the sun novas. Probably at least 1,000 feet of ocean water is evaporated on the sun side when it happens. Then it goes up slowly, and it takes at least 1,000 years, about this mark, and then it just creeps along over the next 10 or 11,000 years. They call this the end of the Ice Age. Now, this graph I made from going through many hundreds of geology journals where they carbon-14 date sediment logs and other organic material they found in continental shelves. This guy did the same. His problem is this should be down with 12,000. He stretched it out to fit the accepted theory. But yeah, he got this part right. Vietnam, I say 270 feet below. And I have the lows of 450 feet, which is this mark, and this is in meters, by the way. So this is what's going on. That it slowly rises over time. And that's it. You're looking at it. So one of the reasons I want people to be by near the equator, but not on the equator, is after this thing happens, and this is after the ocean's rushing over your cave system, and you've survived it, including the earthquakes, you wind up having to go fishing for protein. You could use up all of your other stuff, but protein you're going to need. So if you're like in the middle of the country, like in the Rockies, and you're too far away, I don't know how you're going to get to fishing. I Well, you're going to be all snowed in anyway, but if you're near the equator, it can't be that hard for you to go. You may have to go hundreds of miles to get to the shoreline, the new shoreline, to go fishing, to get protein for your family and your group. After the reversal and the clouds, Earth is going to look like this. Once the clouds are wrung out, it's going to look something like this, but this is the Andes and the Rockies. You won't see that. This is all going to be white for a long time. It'll start melting in through here, but it won't be bad. Crustal displacement. Okay, I covered this stuff in parts 6I and J. This is the paid liar. This is what he did. And his whole purpose was disinformation, to deceive you to think this nonsense. I'm almost done here. This is what settles the issue. I wrote a letter to the Defense Intelligence Agency in August of 2020. They spent $2 billion on an AI program. They must have dumped all the journals in there, including my books, and they came up with the same answer. They knew I was right. That should settle the issue of who's right and who's wrong. So 4488 did it. You want to see it, it's in 6E, F, G, and H. You see the whole thing. This bill, when they first wrote to me back in 2020, he said, I can't imagine how anybody survives something like what you've outlined in your book. Well, evidently they realize it because this bill mentions catastrophic 36 times, global catastrophic 19 times, existential 17 times, as defined as human extinction, and mentions human extinction twice. Never been a bill in US history or any country's written like this, ever. So they believe me. That's why I call them the only adults in the room. They did a good job. Anyway, unlike others, I don't use this platform as a begathon, send me money. The only thing I sell is my books, which are my ideas, which I cherish more than anything else. And but we are a 501c3 public science foundation. And if you have some extra cash, send it off. I'm going to be using it for to paying the engineering companies for design work on the door. And that's it. I hope you learned something, and I hope I have given enough proof to you that this is the end of crustal displacement, that CIA deliberate misinformation